Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. Welcome to Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. We're talking about some hot topics today. Indeed, we are. Although I had a conversation with someone from Australia last night and they had a sweater on, so I guess it depends on where you're enjoying the show. I'm Charlie Arnott, CEO of the Center for Food Integrity. Our mission is to help the food system build trust by helping you understand the forces shaping food and agriculture. And the man who gives us the global perspective on that every month, Dr. David Hughes, Professor Emeritus at Imperial College of London, a world-renowned expert in food and bev. And we're fortunate to catch him home for this episode. David, welcome.
Right. Morning, Charlie, and the rest. And I'm delighted to be with you. Particularly, it's a big week for you nationally. It's, of course, the biggest birthday.
It is. It is 250 years old. I'm not quite half of that, so I think we're in good shape. It is July this month and coming in hot, as they say. Today, we're going to be discussing the latest on the political front in the UK and the impact on ag and food policy, as well as some changes affecting food advertising, which I think are fascinating, the insight that David's going to bring to us on that topic. We're going to start with what's on everyone's mind, the heat. I am thankful we have air conditioning in our office, in our home, but David, most in the UK and Europe, that's not the case for them.
Right, no. And we've just been delivered the hottest June on record in history.
Wow.
Not just in the UK, but actually, and certainly in Northern Europe. And say, if we went back 2 weeks ago, it was 97 Fahrenheit at home here and in London. And it was well over 100 in Germany, Poland, Hungary, Czechia. No. And if you recall, Charlie, I'm a dual national, so Canadian and Brit. And as a Canadian, when we lived there, we used to waltz between 95 plus Fahrenheit in summer and minus 20 in the depths of winter and thought nothing of it. But in the UK, we're just not good at hot or cold for that matter. And so on hot days, only 5% of our houses are aircon, have aircon. But why? We're not that mean. It's because we just didn't need it in history. And for many homes anyway, you can't just sort of slam an aircon unit on the outside of your house because you require planning permission, and that's very difficult to come by. Are they just being awkward? No, it's we live in an older house, and so to retain the older look of it, the 200-year-old look of it, then we've got to be very careful what we do with the outside. But that heat is causing chaos across Northern Europe as well as the UK, France and Spain, and even getting far north from us, which is the top of Scotland. The local councils amuse me. They're spreading sand on the asphalt to stabilize the tar from melting. Can you imagine?
Wow.
And then in our regular cities, workers are streaming back to the office to seek air conditioning. And actually, on a personal note, I was down last week with my son who's got the restaurants. And he works in the restaurants in the morning, helps out with breakfast to align himself with the chefs. And it was well over 100 Fahrenheit in the kitchen. And frankly, the fridges and kitchen equipment, they just don't operate at that level. And what's more, fast food companies across the UK were closing some outlets because it was just too dangerous for staff and too dangerous for
Wow.
customers to be in there. And of course, let's look at ag and food chaos in livestock farms and in the food factories. And it was exacerbated. The government closed many of the schools in the UK 2 weeks back because of the heat. Mums stayed home, and so labor availability is way off. And I was just reminded it was a sort of interesting thought that our schools, institutions, and our larger buildings, many of them were built when we had a completely different climate.
Yeah.
And that climate, it has changed fundamentally. And so do our buildings have to change. And of course, with it, it brings, as I'm sure it's in the US, tragic deaths often associated with drownings, for example, people swimming in rivers and they can't swim, and then older people just falling over with the heat. No, it's been shocking, frankly.
Very difficult, very difficult. Well, the political scene in the UK has also been a little heated lately, once again. So bring us up to speed with what's happening with UK leadership and what might that mean for food and ag?
Right. Well, you say leadership. I mean, it isn't the term that comes to mind for me. Uh, we're heading towards a new prime minister. Our current one, Keir Starmer. I mean, he's a nice man, but he has just announced his resignation. And next up, we've got a very recent ex-mayor of Manchester, who had to resign as mayor and then stand as a member of parliament, which he got in on a landslide, and he will be our next prime minister. He's called Andy Burnham. Manchester, for those that don't know, I mean, for us, it's our second city. Think of it, it's a bit like our Chicago, if you will. And Andy will be our seventh prime minister in 10 years.
Wow.
So, good Lord. And if I think back over, it's only 10 years, one of those seven was a lady called Liz Truss, and she was a prime minister for 49 days. And our wonderful tabloid press said she's the only prime minister that lasted less time than the shelf life of an iceberg lettuce, uh, which is a little harsh, isn't it? But
Quite.
but sort of just pondering this, I mean, I was thinking of Oscar Wilde, which is one of our great English playwrights, and he wrote a wonderful play called The Importance of Being Earnest. And one of his leading ladies in the play had a sort of fabulous line. It was, "To lose one parent may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose two looks like carelessness."
Mhm.
Funny as it is, but frankly, it made me think to lose one or two prime ministers over a 10-year period is unfortunate in many respects, but to lose six and now awaiting our seventh is just ludicrous. Particularly in history, we Brits have always lampooned the Italians, who we love dearly, but because they like to change prime ministers about the same amount of time that you change your socks. And now we're changing prime ministers more frequently than the Italians. And, so what? It's only politics. But with such changes, every time there's a change of prime minister, there's a change of ministers. For
Right.
example, in our case, our Secretary of Agriculture is called the Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Our acronym is, that's our DEFRA secretary. And over the past 10 years, we've had 11 of them, and we're about to have our 12th. So,
Wow.
you know, what's the impact on policy? I mean, it's just bloody hopeless, frankly. As each new food minister, as you would imagine, comes in and they feel bound to change something, to put their
Right.
stamp on, if you will. And our current prime minister, he's just released the farming roadmap for 2050, which we've been anticipating, looking forward to. And it at the top, his top line, encouraging, is that food production is going to remain the principal purpose of farming. Now, you might think, isn't that obvious? Well, for us, the previous push was much more towards the environmental end, to have to green our world and not to produce food. So it's encouraging that food is back on the top of the list. But right behind it is again this whole focus, if you will, on nature positive farming. Nothing wrong with that. So whether it be more regen ag, more organic, less fertilizer and pesticides, and actually, seriously, it's preparing agriculture for more extreme weather, more flooding, more drought, for example, and certainly, as we're seeing right now, for more supply chain disruptions. And also, we're anticipating, as you're leading this, actually accelerating the use of technology. Where does AI come into in all this? And in our particular case, it's a focus on different income streams for farmers.
Mm.
So particularly the smaller guys. So of course it's food sales, but also it's environmental markets. You can earn money or points for improving the environment. There are carbon schemes. There are renewable energy opportunities. There are non-farm, non-food incomes such as tourism. So farming will be a multi-occupation, if you will. So
Interesting.
no, it is. It's so fingers crossed that whoever next come in don't change that. I'd love to see it same.
Absolutely. I can't imagine farmers and bankers and others trying to plan for that level of disruption on an ongoing basis. Must be very difficult. So, one final topic we've been following basically since 2004 when Facebook came on the scene. are the changes in how people consume media. It is entirely different from when you and I were growing up. Now, the UK has a new rule that applies to social media, and I think we're seeing this in some other countries as well. It's fascinating as we begin to realize the impact of social media on certain generations. Tell us how that's going to impact food companies. I think this is really, really interesting.
Right. Okay. So our soon to leave Prime Minister, because he knew it was attractive to many parents, is introducing a ban starting in early 2027 on children for use of social media. So banning children under 16 from accessing a range of social media platforms. And actually, Charlie, just as you mentioned, it mimics the law introduced in Australia back December 2025. And so what's been banned here for children? Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Reddit, X, and ones I don't know. Why would I? Kick, Twitch, goodness me. What is permitted is WhatsApp, YouTube Kids, Google Classroom, Lego Play, as you would expect. And as you say, what's the implication here for the food industry? Well, clearly, food and drink brands focus as their customers on children, and they're
Hmm.
hugely concerned because social media has been the primary advertising platform when they're focusing on kids. And so they're now scrambling and diverting towards ad supporting platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and gaming apps. And also, it's challenging for brands, I think, to create a sort of more experience related products for children and communities which are really relevant to youngsters. So, of course, they need to remain where they can online, but they also have to have a presence in the real world. Which they were exiting in large numbers. And so for children, they're focused on advertising, any advertising to do with sport, music, gaming, and school-related stuff. And also, more intriguingly, may focus on children-friendly, tactile, cool packaging, for example. But also, in-store advertising is booming, but not necessarily from a direct to children point of view at the moment. But it will change, or will it? But remember, parents stump up the cash for kids friendly food and drink purchases. But targeting the parents will need to be a lot more thoughtful if you want to get towards their kids. For example, they're going to need to have, I think, a much better story on health if they're going via the parents.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, the transition back to IRL from digital is going to be really interesting to see how we work to what's going to happen with activations, what's going to happen with those experiential opportunities. It will be a fascinating transition to see how that plays out in other countries and then how it works its way across the world. Okay, we've got time for one last item. Around the world, people are watching and celebrating the World Cup. We certainly did last night in the US, but Kansas City, where we live and where our offices are, has been a host city. We've been delighted by all of the international visitors we've been able to bring to the town and to engage with them in a way that helps us appreciate that despite what we hear and read in the news about being so divided and politicized, when people come together, the engagement and the reaction is much, much different. So, David, tell us a little bit how that's playing out with food.
Right. But first, real congratulations. We were so delighted that you won last night and puts you into the last 16. And there's every chance that you could progress from there, which would be just fabulous, frankly, because a big push from America globally on soccer is what everybody likes.
We've been a little late to the party.
Yes, you were. So back on. So what about World Cup soccer and food and drink promotion? It's huge in the UK. And what I particularly like, my favorite is Morrison's, one of our big supermarket chains, announced a promotion which is on World Cup halftime oranges giveaway. So if you're shopping in Morrison's, then you can get your free halftime oranges for you and your family and your children to eat at halftime in the football matches. And it's sort of brilliant. And why? Because it's got such a sort of historical connection for me. When I was playing rugby in the UK, and there still is actually, there's a legal requirement that at halftime the teams have to have slices of oranges to refresh refresh the players. And I know you do that in the USA. And of course, if you went back to my era, there was no fancy isotonic drinks that, well, apart from water. It became part of sport in general, the oranges at halftime. And I thought it was just a sort of intriguing, innovative way to promote the World Cup. And no, terrific. Well done.
Yeah, a great way to connect nostalgia with food and what's happening currently and the passion around the World Cup. Congrats to Morrison's for making that happen. Hey, that's all the time we have for today. It really is the fastest 15 minutes in food. David, as always, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. Join us next month on August 6th for Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food from the Center for Food Integrity. Be safe over this 4th of July holiday if you are in the U.S. and enjoy your time wherever you may be listening, and stay cool if you can. David, take care. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheerio. Congratulations on your birthday.
Thanks much.